Every leader will have a full calendar. The question is, what will it be filled with? That's the question. If you don't take charge of your schedule, catch this, others will always be in charge of you. I remember the frustration of working hard the first 4 years after starting my organization from scratch and coming to the realization that I was being ineffective in my role. And in those years, most of my time was spent taking care of minor administration tasks and things such as reports or even putting out fires, which isn't necessary. But I was putting in long hours. I won some trophies, plaques, recognition, but my business wasn't growing at a fulfilling rate. And I think you guys can relate to that. It wasn't until I started to value my time more and I started to use the 80-20 principle in my life. And here's some things that stood out to me. 20% of the organization create 80% of the problems. 20% of the organization generated 80% of the revenues. 20% results came from 80% of time. And when I started to look at it from that perspective, it was very eye-opening. It meant that the best 20% of my activities were 16 times more productive than the remaining 80%. So, I wanted to decrease the complexity of my life and increase the productivity. And I would need to focus on my top 20%. And I came to the realization that I was doing too many of the wrong things. And, that's a recipe for an ineffective life. So, I was trying to find at the end of the day the main thing. And what ended up happening was it boiled down to RDL. I know you guys have heard me give you this acronym, VGA plus SMB and RDL equals a very successful life and career. But RDL stands for recruit, develop, and lead. And, I began to evaluate how I invested my time. As I prioritized my schedule, I asked myself three questions. What gives me the greatest return of investment? That was the first question. What gives me the greatest return of investment? The second question, what is the most rewarding? And then the third question I asked myself is, what's required of me? So I want to know what's going to give me the greatest return of investment, what is the most rewarding, and what's required of me. And as I began discovering the answers, my guiding principle was the purpose of all work is results. And there were 5 decisions I made that helped me become more focused and productive. So here's the first one. I decided not to know everything. For the longest, man, I thought that you had to know everything. I really did. Like I tried my hardest to like learn this, learn that, and put myself in a position so that I'm confident, when I'm dealing with my people and blah. I just came to a point where I said, you know what? I don't need to know everything. So I decided not to know everything. And here's what I know is that successful leaders don't know everything. They don't. But they know people who do. That's the key. They don't know everything, but they know people who do. And if you're a leader and you don't have a good assistant, you're in trouble. So when you have the right person in place, you can keep your mind on the main thing while your assistant thinks about everything else. So when you take yourself out of the middle, it allows you to do what is most important. And I was blessed that I had some amazing individuals that I crossed paths with that ended up being my assistants over the years that really helped me, keep my mindset on the right things. But most importantly, I was able to remove myself out of the middle so I can focus on what's most important, if that makes sense. Those things that I was consuming myself with, they ended up taking on. They learned how to do it and they ended up doing it better than me, that's what you want. So that was number one. I decided not to know everything. Number two, I decided not to know everything first. In any organization, problems should always be solved at the lowest level possible. Let me say that again. In any organization, problems should be solved at the lowest level first. If every problem must be shared with the leaders first, then solution is going to take forever. And man, I struggle with that. I wanted to know what was going on because being a protective type of person, you want to ensure that you can have as much control of what's happening, if it will negatively impact things, So, man, I struggled with this. I had to know what was going on. But here's the thing, if every problem must be shared with the leaders first, then the solution is going to take forever. So I allowed my assistant to be the center of information for my life. She knew the good, the bad, and ugly, and I trusted her to tell me the bad news. And I learned to be careful not to shoot the messenger. I would shoot, man. I'm telling you, she would bring me stuff and I was shooting the messenger. And I had to learn from that. Because, when you're taking your frustrations out on people who bring you bad information, what ends up happening is that will quickly stop the flow of communication. So these things all matter as you're trying to structure the way you operate so you can be more efficient. When you have those individuals in place and you're shooting a messenger, man, that's not good. So learn from me. Don't be like that. But that's something that, I decided to do. And as I learned in that part of the process of, I have to do a better job here, things started to get better where I was more comfortable with not having to know everything first. Here's the third thing. I decided to let someone resent me. And here's what I mean by that. The decision to let others represent you requires time and trust. You must know their heart well enough to trust their character. And when you have shared history, which is mandatory, um, they're going to know yours also. And lastly, you must believe in their competence. And the only way you can believe in someone's competence who's in that position is you've witnessed with your own eyes them handle things the way that you would. And if they can do the job, catch this part. If this individual can do the job 80% as well as you, then they're ready. Too often, we want them to be at 100%. People need to grow into things, but if they can at least do it 80%, they're ready. Something to consider. Number four, I decided to stay my strength zone. Half of being smart is knowing what are you dumb at? Let me say that again. Half of being smart is knowing what are you dumb at? We're dumb at something. No one's walking around like it's just got it all figured out, right? Um, I learned about myself that I like to do things with my full concentration, or else it can be delegated. So stay in your strength zone. That was number four. Here's number five. I decided to take charge of what got my attention. Every leader will have a full calendar. Every leader. The question is, what will it be filled with? That's the question. Mike and Jalen, I know you guys saw my schedule way back when. I had every hour on the hour allotted for, from the moment I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to when I went to sleep. Every leader will have a full calendar. The question is, what will it be filled with? If you don't take charge of your schedule, catch this, others will always be in charge of you. If you do not take charge of your schedule, others will always be in charge of you. So keeping your mind on the main thing requires simplification and trade-offs. You will be more focused, energetic, and less stressed. Just at the end of the day, guys, just understand you can't do everything. And there are going to be times where you have to say no. I struggle with that. I struggle with saying no to people and things. And sometimes I still struggle with it to this day. But I want to tell you guys from my own personal experience, you have to say no to some things. Now, if you don't choose your trade-offs, catch this, someone else will. So here's a reflection exercise I want you guys to do. It don't matter your title, your tenure, your production. This applies to all of us, myself included. What things occupy your time? Are you focused on your strengths? And are you stuck in the middle? I want you guys to just reflect on that. Spend some time today, whatever. Reflect on those three things. Reflect on what's occupying your time. Reflect on are you focused on your strengths? And then are you stuck in the middle? I guarantee you, one of you are stuck in the middle of some things. You're not operating in your strength. And I guarantee you, some of you are occupying your time with things that, for example, it's not giving you the highest return of investment of your time.